You know why I'm here.
I just don't want to kill you. I can't kill you. This. Can't do that shit. You can't.
Gonna sit there and let Jenard fuck your shit up.
He's my brother.
Yeah, and JP was mine. I mean, I ain't gonna stop until Jenard's dead.
I'm not gonna let you kill my brother, Tommy.
Tommy want me. He don't want you, D.
You my brother. And we in this shit together.
YouTube, we back at it again this week with another recap and review of Power Book 4 episode 9, and we know they dropped another good ass episode, man. They literally like have not missed this entire season, bro. I ain't gonna fake. I wish they had another season for this shit, but without further ado, bro, we're gonna go ahead and get into it, bro. Power Book 4 episode 9. So coming over to this first scene basically just summarizing this up. You know, Tommy and D-Mac is at the funeral home, and Tommy's paying for the whole expenses with JP and everything that's going on. And we can see D-Mac in the background. He looks real distraught. So Tommy and I'm asking D-Mac, like, look, you know, you want to say anything, you know, else to your father before we leave? And, you know, the nigga D-Mac, like, he cold. What he said, man, no, look, fuck it, man. He gone. Let's just get the fuck out of here. So then when I seen this nigga Diamond, he got a motherfucking sex scene within like the first 3 minutes of the episode. I'm like, yeah, my nigga Diamond out of here. It's over with for my nigga Diamond. Come to find out, the nigga Diamond did end up hitting Madam Wu. So he ended up hitting Madam Wu, and the nigga Jenard ended up coming downstairs, and she ended up leaving. And you know, Jenard ended up telling Diamond, like, look, you know, this is the same shit that Tommy did. So the boy Diamond ended up telling Jenard, like, look, I'm a grown ass man. You ain't gotta worry about that shit. So now Jenard ends up telling, you know, Diamond about everything that happened in the last episode. And you know, as Diamond heard this shit, he was confused as hell because he wondered, like, man, how the fuck did this shit happen? Like, you know, like, what the hell? Like, what went down? You know, the nigga Jenard basically told him, like, look, he had to do it and the shit had to be done. So Jenard's plan was to, look, we can flip the motherfucking RDs and tell this shit, like, look, Tommy brother did all this shit to Kilo and have all that out the way right there and deal with them with that end. Then we can also, look, work with fucking Ortega and get in with the Marquez cartel because we also know that Ortega wants to take out Tommy Egan. So coming up into the next scene right here, we got Tommy questioning Shanti, you know, asking her, do she know where Jenard is at? And asking her, like, you know, like, are you still protecting Jenard within all of the shit that's going on? And, you know, Shanti is standing firm on what she's saying by saying, like, look, like, me and Jenard is done. I don't fuck with him no more. And Miguel walks in and basically says, like, look, we need to find a plan to take out Ortega because he tried to come after Maria. And we also know that Tommy wants to take out Jenard, so they have to figure out a plan of how they can take out these two niggas within a 6-hour time frame. So now as we come over here to the RDs, you know, talking to people in CBI, we know Jenard is basically trying to twist the whole story and, you know, make it seem like that, you know, JP was the one that did the shit and trying to flip the whole entire story. And we know Jenard is basically trying to tell Gray Skull, like, look, Tommy's a motherfucker that we need to go out there. That's the motherfucker that we need to take out because he didn't damn near came to Chicago and flipped everything. And we also know that Gray Skull, he's hearing that, but he also trying to figure out, like, why the fuck did they have not taken out Tommy yet? And they also told, you know, Gray Skull, like, look, this is a part of the plan that since JP took the nigga out, you know, like, you can do the honors of taking out Tommy. Gray Skull said, you know, that's cool, but I want the motherfucking drop on that nigga D-Mac. We know for the most part, you know, Marshall had kept us silent and ain't give up where D-Mac was at. But we also know that the nigga Jenard got into his head, like, look, you need to take this motherfucker out. Like, look, you the closest motherfucker to him, he ain't gonna see it coming. You need to do this shit. You ain't really got no choice. Like, if you CBR or not. He in his head. You know, the boy Marshall ended up saying, yeah. So coming over here to Donna and Bobby, you know, they're all talking about the Marquez cartel case. And we know that the nigga Ortega had ended up getting released from prison, you know. And when Donna was reviewing everything, she had came up across the lawyer of Ortega. And basically, you know, he's off the grid. Like, you know, you can't find no info on him, like, anywhere. And we know Bobby was looking at all this shit, and he's still not convinced that, you know, that she was took out by the Marquez cartel because, you know, he asked about, you know, if he had, like, any criminal history, and Donna ended up saying no. And we also know that Sang is talking to Vic behind Bobby's back about the whole case and everything that's going on that was said by Donna. So basically just summarizing this scene up right here, Sang is trying to get information out of Vic, and Vic, you know, he not budging, and we know that Sang said he was going to, you know, arrest him for the murder of Colin. But we know that that whole plan was erased in a couple episodes when Tommy had made that video with the one girl. So Vic can visibly see Sang getting angry, and Sang also said like, look, you're going to tell me that Stacey Martin was corrupted. And the nigga Vic put two and two together like, man, you want somebody's payroll because you more worried about Stacey being corrupt than everything else that's going on. So coming over to this next scene right here, we got the boy Tommy trying to flip two CBI members, Big Smurf and another random CBI character, and he's basically telling him like, look, if you join me, you ain't got to worry about anything that's, you know, happening. So we know the dude on the right, you know, saying like, look, I'll flip. He ended up taking the cash, and Tommy lowered his gun, but we know Big Smurf wasn't gonna really flip, and he said, look, even if I did, you wouldn't even trust me. So Tommy ended up shooting the dude on the right, and ended up telling Big Smurf like, look, tell Jannard I'm coming for him. So as we're coming over here to the scene with Diamond, Jannard, and Ortega, Diamond's basically telling Ortega like, look, we wanna join forces with you, and you know we want to work together essentially. And we know that Ortega is not feeling this shit because you know his uncle did, you know, get thrown off of the whole balcony by Tommy. And we know that nigga Ortega damn near took out the nigga Jannard, like, look, brother for a brother. And Diamond ended up telling Ortega like, look, if you was to kill Jannard right now, that would only benefit Tommy because he took Tommy's brother out last night. And the nigga Ortega ended up telling them like, look, the only way that this partnership is gonna work is if you let me kill Tommy Egan. Other than that, we got to deal. And we know a couple of RD members that got the drop on Tommy, but we also see a van that ended up pulling up. But we do know that this was the Estrada cartel to kidnap Tommy and stop all the bullshit that's going on. So as we come over to the next scene, Miguel and Tommy had ended up getting kidnapped by the Estrada cartel, and Che ended up pulling up on these niggas' action. These niggas like, man, y'all two motherfuckers don't listen. Like I told y'all niggas do not start a war. Tommy ended up telling Che like, look, Diamond and Jannard just got in with the Marquez cartel and they pushing fentanyl, so us not listening to your orders would probably be the best thing to do at this moment. So Che ended up telling Tommy and Miguel like, look, y'all handle that shit with CBI, and if y'all don't, look, I'ma stab Maria in the heart. And you know, Tommy and Miguel both get that nigga that look like, man. They're telling this nigga Tommy like, look, remember that re-up that I told you in the 24 hours? You still need to pay up on that shit. So then we come over here to Vic and fucking Ray, and apparently they're leaving the city of Chicago, but we know that this nigga Vic is gonna end up returning in next week's episode because of, in the fucking trailer, you know, he was talking about, you know, taking out Tommy, so 9 times out of 10 he's gonna side with Jannard. Quickly just summarizing this scene right here, Kate is finally returning, you know, after everything that happened with JP, and you know, Tommy really don't want her because, you know, he thinks that she's gonna, you know, create chaos and drama. But we all know at the end of the day, you know, Kate just want to help, and she just want to, you know, just feel like she can, you know, help with everything that's going on, essentially. Because, you know, that she's on her whole recovery journey, and she just want to feel like she can be there to support everybody. So now coming over here to the scene with D-Mac and Marshall. Marshall is basically telling D-Mac, like, look, you gotta get the fuck out of the city because these CBI niggas gunning for your head, bro. And we know the nigga D-Mac wasn't trying to hear none of this shit, bro. Because you gotta think, man, this nigga still mad that his father had got dropped off. And now he talking to his best friend, giving up the person, you know, who did the shit, you know. And I really feel D-Mac at the end of the day because, like, I know you since we was 6, my nigga. So then in the midst of them arguing, this nigga Marshall ended up and pole on the nigga D-Mac. And we know the nigga Marshall got to talking this shit. And he ended up, you know, basically saying like, look, I can't kill you because, like, look, you my brother, bro. Then after all that shit, he ended up telling D-Mac, you know, like, get the fuck out. And, you know, he ended up lowering his gun. So then the boy D-Mac ended up and pole on Marshall. And, you know, Marshall talking like that, you know, you can't do that shit, you know, because, look, you my brother, bro. And the nigga D-Mac ended up popping this nigga. I'm like, yo, shit is going down. Ray and Kate are, you know, just having to talk about everything, and they're having to talk about, you know, the drug game. And you know, Kate had ended up bringing up, you know, Ghost and how she had lost Ghost to the drug game, and how she had lost JP to the drug game. And another thing is, I know they have brung up Ghost right here, and we seen these speculations about him being in episode 10, which I don't believe, but we gonna have to see. And you know, Maria had ended up telling Kate like, you know, I feel so sorry that you had to go through all that, you know, with dealing with the child. And, you know, Kate put 2 and 2 together and ended up finding out that, you know, Maria was pregnant. So with Maria hearing all this, we also do know that she will be trying to book a flight to Mexico, and that will be a one-way flight, and Kate will end up, you know, stopping her and asking her, like, are you trying to leave my son? So now as we come to this scene right here, Sang ended up telling Bobby and Donna that, you know, look, Stacey Martin was compromised by Tommy Egan because, you know, that's what Vic told me. And, you know, Bobby trying to figure out, like, look, why don't you let me get a crack at Vic? You know, like, what's the deal? And, you know, Sang ended up telling Bobby, like, look, we couldn't arrest Vic on nothing because, you know, we don't have nothing on him. And, you know, Sang and Donna is basically telling fucking Bobby, like, look, you got to, you know, like, lay back on this shit. You can't go do anything or get anywhere near Tommy Egan because it's going to fuck the whole case up. And, you know, Bobby don't give a fuck about none of that shit because he going to do his own little recon work that, you know, later on in the episode. And he will end up finding that Sang did end up knowing the lawyer to Ortega. Now, as you come over to the scene, Tommy, when they was talking to the city, and they just wanted to know, like, you know, like, what went wrong with our partnership? You know, like, everything was going so good and so smooth, like what went wrong, man? Like, look, you know, it's still some type of respect there between Tommy and fucking Diamond, but, you know, it's a lot of shit that came, you know, in the middle of the whole partnership, you know, all the lying and the manipulation with fucking Jenard getting inside of Diamond's head. And we know the boy Tommy ended up telling Diamond, like, look, I'm not gonna stop until your brother is dead. And we know he ended up telling Diamond, I did a lot of shit you think I wasn't gonna do, and I did that shit. So now coming over here to this scene with Jenard, you know, he's finding out about the whole situation that happened with Marshall. And, you know, Jenard pissed about the shit. And he ended up saying, like, man, this is why you don't send the kids, you know, for a man's job. You should have been the one that did the shit, bro. Like, how the fuck you gonna get mad? You was the motherfucker that planned the shit. So this nigga Jenard ended up making the move. And fucking, he ended up seeing Tommy's car out, and fucking Kate was driving this motherfucker. So he had ended up pulling up on Kate. So this nigga ended up choking Kate and pulling a fucking pistol out on her. And, you know, she get the fucking screaming and yelling that, you know, it's sirens in the fucking, you know, in the distance. And the nigga Jenard had ended up getting up out of there. So once Kate had came back to the crib and described what the man had looked like, Tommy already knew all rip that it was Jenard. And he had told everybody, like, look, we getting the fuck up out of here. We going to Miguel's spot. We hiding out there. So as Tommy is going back to Miguel's spot, he ended up telling Shanti, like, look, we need to find this motherfucker, you know, Jenard right now. Like, all that waiting shit needs to stop. He told Tommy, like, look, I got an inside man inside the CBI. And we know the nigga D-Mac ended up hearing this shit. And he like, man, you got an inside man this whole fucking time, and you just not saying this shit? So Shanti ended up telling them, like, look, Jenard already moved spots because he definitely knows that y'all know that he was the one that tried to take out your mom. Us taking the approach where I can contact my inside man and we can move like that. It's the smartest thing we can do. And we know that Tommy ended up agreeing with her and saying, like, look, fuck it, we're going to roll with Shanti's plan on this one. Now, as we're coming over here to the church, we know Diamond and Jenard, you know, talking it up. And, you know, Diamond is telling Jenard, like, look, if you're going to make some solo moves, you got to, like, tell me this shit first. I mean, you can't just keep making all these moves without me knowing, man. And, you know, the boy Jenard basically told Diamond, like, look, man, I had to do something. Like, you really give a fuck? You think Ortega gave a fuck? You know, if I get took out before we take out Tommy? And we know that this nigga Jenard had ended up telling Diamond, like, look, I heard it was some IPs that was spotted around. That could mean they could possibly have a drop on us. And Diamond had ended up telling him, like, look, you know, this could probably benefit us because, you know, if Tommy got the drop on this and we already prepared, you know, that's our time to take the nigga out. Now, as we come over here, you got the boy Diamond telling Jenard, like, look, man, me bringing you in the CBI was, you know, my version of keeping you closer. And, you know, that kind of fucked you up by me doing that shit. And we know that Diamond tried to have Jenard confess to, you know, taking him out because of what Shanti told Diamond last episode. And we know that Jenard was real close to saying it, but, you know, he didn't end up saying it. He basically said, like, no, like, you didn't break me none of that shit. This is what the fuck I'm supposed to be on top with CBI. You know, running shit. Like, this what the fuck is supposed to be. So Diamond had ended up telling Jenard, like, look, man, you gotta stay off of that shit. We're gonna be partners. And you know the nigga Jenard had ended up saying, like, look, all right, bet. But we know that nigga lying. And this nigga Jenard essentially lied all the way to the end when it came with this nigga Diamond, man. So Raheem had ended up giving, you know, the gunman like some type of water that was contained with something. And, you know, they had ended up dying. Then he ended up slitting one of the other gunmen's throat. And he ended up, you know, giving them niggas the call and telling them niggas, like, look, it's go time. So, man, these niggas get to pulling up, shooting. I think Tommy done caught like 2 bodies off rip. Then this nigga D-Mac had a motherfucking gun with a switch on that motherfucker. Then that bitch ended up jamming, and this nigga ended up getting shot in the motherfucking arm by Jenard. Fucking Tommy and fucking Jenard ended up locking eyes. Tommy was about to take the fucking shot. Then that nigga Diamond hopped in front of this nigga Jenard, and you can tell the look on this nigga Tommy's face. Like, man, he ain't really want to pop the nigga Diamond, man. He still had love and respect for that nigga Diamond, bro. But then when Tommy came to the realization that he shot fucking Diamond, you know, he fired like at least 3 or 4 more shots at the nigga Jenard, but he was, you know, taking cover. You know, they had fucking fled the scene, and they had got the fuck up out of there. So coming over here to the performance of the night, we got the boy Jenard laying over fucking Diamond's dead body, growing. Took out fucking JP last episode, and Tommy accidentally returned that favor this episode by taking out fucking Diamond, because the nigga Tommy did tell Diamond that, you know, look, I'm not gonna stop at nothing by trying to take out your brother. And that's exactly what he did. So that's a wrap on this week's recap and review on Power Book 404's episode 9. And man, this whole season has been fucking top notch, man. RP that boy Marshall, RP that boy Diamond, man. And if you like any videos that you see on my page right here, go ahead and click on them, like, comment, subscribe, and I'm out.